Good morning, Facebook viewers. My name is Tom Loewy. I'm a columnist and reporter for the Galesburg Register-Mail, and you are watching Driving with Loewy. Thank you for being here. Had a busy day yesterday, a good day. Some days it feels good to just get out and write a story, go somewhere. Writing a story, when you're a reporter, I think a lot of people don't realize is that writing a story, any kind of story, is kind of, it's a little like a discovery. You go to a place or to an event where most of the time you don't really know anything about it. And then you kind of discover it along the way by listening, by asking questions. And so it's actually, being a reporter, being a journalist can be an incredibly addictive, I think, kind of endeavor, because that's like a cool way to get to live, is to meet people that you've never met before and then get a chance to ask them questions about their lives or whatever they're doing or whatever event that they're involved in. And a lot of people ask me, why do you stay in Galesburg, or why do you stay in a profession that doesn't pay a lot of money or whatever. And so one of the things I try to tell them, I don't think there's anything wrong with any reporter who has left Galesburg. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone who has left journalism to go find more money in public relations or some other kind of endeavor. For me personally, what happened yesterday was I got to drive to Galva and meet people I've never met before. Really, I've been in Galva maybe 3 other times, I've spent maybe a total of an hour there previously, and I spent an entire morning and part of an afternoon in Galva yesterday talking to people about their community and the state of their community, listening to them talk about their community. Caught some flack this morning, and which is fine, but I caught some flack this morning about the idea that in the wake of the shooting of Xavier Hartman, that Galva is some kind of divided town. Well, that's what every single person I talked to, that's the first thing they said. And it was cited as a reason by everyone who didn't want to speak on the record. And there were quite a few people who didn't want to speak on the record about the subject because of the division, because of the fact that both of the men involved in it, Xavier Hartman and James Love, were known in town, have families in town, and it's a town of 2,600 people. So I don't know that everybody knows everybody, but you're known to everyone in some way or another. And so people were really reticent to talk about it, and that's what the story tried to capture. And so when the headline has the word divided in it, it's very clearly because that's how people reacted. That's what people said to us. I didn't come in and with the idea that Galva is a town divided. I don't know anything about Galva, and so in a way, that's why I'm a reporter, is that I want to take the time to listen to people talk to me about what they think of their town in the wake of what happened back in June. So it was not an easy assignment in terms of the fact that people were very nice. Galva's a very friendly town. People smiled and shook my hand and everything like that. But on the other hand, not a lot of people want to talk about it, like I said. And I don't blame them. For one thing, it is a very contentious and troubling event, the shooting of Xavier Hartman. And it's also the fact that I'm a stranger there. The people in Galva, I think 1 or 2 people said, "Oh yeah, I know who you are." Other than that, people didn't know me from the man on the moon, and that's okay. So you've got to really listen closely and ask specific questions. And so I spent, the better part of the day in Galva yesterday, and I'm better for it as a reporter because, it's like batting practice. It's like any endeavor is that if you want to try to be good at something, you have to just do it over and over and over and over. And what you have to do as a reporter over and over and over is ask questions and listen to answers and listen and listen and listen. That's what you do. And so, it's a good day for me when I can go somewhere and learn something. So, if you're just joining us, you're with Driving with Loewy, and we are out and about today. We're talking about Galva. We're going to talk about guns, and we're going to talk about critical thinking. Why are we going to talk about guns? Because I want to talk. I think a lot of people either know how I feel about guns or they think they know how I feel about guns, and I've been accused of everything from wanting to take all guns away to I don't know. So what informs me, and what is, why did I talk so much about listening? It's for this reason. It's because, for me, guns are not a tool. Okay, and I didn't grow up with them, or I did grow up with them all around me, killing people, and so that's the kind of framework that's my bias going into guns. Okay, what I found interesting is that while I've listened to people, I learned something really interesting a few months ago, and then it was reaffirmed yesterday. And somebody told me why someone who lives 20 minutes outside of Galesburg or 30 minutes outside of Rock Island, in the heart of some county, surrounded by corn and soy, might want to, or definitely wants to, have a handgun. And that is that you live 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes from law enforcement response. And I had never really thought of that. I got to tell you something. The idea of living in a farmhouse out in the country, to me, is terrifying. That sounds like the beginning of a horror movie, like when someone says, imagine a farmhouse out in the middle of the country. You know what I see? I see, the kids getting out of the van at the beginning of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what I see. Because I grew up, I didn't grow up anywhere near farms or rural country or anything like that. So, to this day, the idea of being in a farmhouse all alone is scary to me. And I'll admit that, that's just the way it is. So immediately I understood. It clicked with me. Of course, if you live 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, even 10 minutes from law enforcement response, you're gonna own a handgun, or hunting gun, or some kind of gun, right? That makes sense. Now, let's page forward. That was explained to me a couple months ago, and it made me think differently, a little bit differently, or a little more completely, in a little more informed way about guns. So let's page forward to the shooting of Xavier Hartman. In the wake of it, in the back of my head, what I couldn't get out of my head was, why would anybody take a gun to an accident scene? Like, you're going to be a good Samaritan and you're gonna gear up, beforehand. That just sounded weird to me. Well, if you listen to people, if you take the time to listen to some of the possible explanations, it is not unusual in the middle of the night, especially when you hear arguing after an accident, for a person who lives in rural America to maybe get their gun. We weren't walking in the shoes of James Love. The other reason that it's not unusual to get a gun in the wake of an accident is that there could be an injured animal there at that accident that needs to be put down. And I never even thought of that. I've hit a deer, and I know that deer suffered, and a sidearm, I guess I could have put it down. But, so those are two important aspects to think of. I want to be clear here. I don't know why James Love took a gun to an accident scene. And I don't know why Xavier Hartman is dead. I don't know. And I don't claim to know. What, in talking about this subject, in listening to people talk about this subject, I learned something very important about guns that I did not know. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so when I think about guns and gun ownership, I can think better, I can have better critical thinking, better application of the things I know to the things that I feel based on my experiences and based on, you know, in the time that I grew up, in the place that I grew up, and the things that shaped how I feel about guns. Okay? And so critical thinking, one of the things that I don't like in modern political dialogue, whether it's, you know, conservatives talking about liberals or liberals talking, whatever, candidates talking about the other side, Democrats talking about Republicans or Republicans talking about Democrats, is this idea of flip-flopping. You know, like, yeah, you know, you don't flip-flop on civil rights, right? But you may have a chance to have a more informed opinion about something like guns. You know, like, this doesn't make me want to okay bump stocks, right? Or silencers, or a lot of the military kind of hardware, the high velocity, or I guess the high caliber, the high magazine, the large magazine automatic weaponry that we see, you know, shredding children at schools. It doesn't make me want to, you know, I'm not all of a sudden all for that. But it's up to me, if I'm going to have opinions about gun ownership, it's up to me to understand the reasons why people own guns. And so I can think better about it, thinking critically about it. And so, yeah, you know, like, some of my opinion or some of my outlook, some of the worldview that I have on guns had better change as I become more informed. You know what I mean? Now, the other side of the coin is you know, not every Second Amendment supporter has all the answers. You know, maybe the Second Amendment isn't all the answers we need. We don't need codification and, you know, the idea that we get our laws from some kind of higher authority and therefore they're all sacrosanct from the moment they're spoken. You know, the amendments to the Constitution are not, you know, the Ten Commandments. And I think a lot of times in this country they're put up to be, because in this country as things get hard and things get complicated and things get confusing, a lot of people want to, you know, turn to an authoritarian model of life, like, this is the law and thou shalt, you know, follow the law or whatever. You know what? Let's keep our laws like living, breathing things, and like our opinions, the product of critical thinking, right? Like, we have some principles that should guide us, like equality and access and, you know, those kinds of ideas, and build our laws from there. You know, we don't have to have laws that were written in the 17 or 1800s, you know, as set in stone, still immovable today. Like, we're never going to have any other kind of laws than the ones that, you know, George Washington signed off on or whatever. That I think is a little ridiculous. That defies the reasoning for the Supreme Court, right? So anyway, you know, yesterday in Galva was a learning experience for me about possible motivations. Again, if you're just joining Driving with Loewy, first of all, thanks. Second of all, I went to Galva yesterday. I wrote about the town and what some of the people are saying in the wake of last month's, or I guess it's almost, you know, June. It was late June shooting of Xavier Hartman. He was shot and killed by James Love following an accident on a country road. And so a confusing situation, I think, for a lot of people. And what I wanted to do was go and find out how people were feeling. What I ended up, finding out for me personally was, some of the motivations on why people carry guns late at night on country roads, responding to an accident, some of the possible reasons. And that's important for me to learn. I think it's important for other people to learn. I think, again, I don't know who's guilty or innocent or what happened on that country road in that specific way. What people told me, or in those specific moments, I guess, but what people told me was a kind of general idea of why someone might carry a gun out into the country late at night. Now, some other people might have other opinions about that. See, I don't know about that. Like I said earlier, the idea of living out, like on a farmhouse, for a lot of people that's a dream, and that's totally cool. But for me, that's a scary thing, to live in that kind of isolation or seeming isolation or whatever. I'm having a little bit of camera difficulty this morning. So at any rate, got a phone call. Listen, my name is Tom Loewy. I'm a reporter and columnist from the Galesburg Register-Mail. And as always, I'm glad you're joining Driving with Loewy. I appreciate your time. And I hope you all join me tomorrow. We're going to start having guests again. I got a couple of people that are trying to line up with me. People are actually contacting me to get in the car, which is kind of nice. Don't know what we're going to talk about. We might continue the love series. I also kind of want to, just as always, talk about people's lives and how they're doing and what they're going through. So I just like listening to people, and hopefully you do too. Thanks for listening to this. I hope you join me again soon. Folks, have a great day.